So in addition to these things, you need to experiment to determine truth. And that's using things outside of yourself and then using the senses that are inside of yourself in a harmonious manner to determine what the truth is about a thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's what an experiment is. You need to experiment. The only way, without being told something, the only way to discover that thing is to experiment. Right? But of course, it'd be better if you could just be informed by somebody else. Or you could say, let's call it what it really is, educated by somebody who knows. Does that make sense? That is more powerful than an experiment. Because an experiment, you might have to, just to determine one truth, like to determine the truth of gravity and to determine the speed of gravity and all the other functions of gravity, not all of them, but just a minor amount of the functions of gravity. When Newton did his experiments, it took him years. The next person who came along, he just told them. And they didn't have to take years. Does that make sense? So having an education is going to be better than having an experiment. Does that make sense? You can experiment and it's very powerful, but you need to also have an education.
So that's another hierarchy there.
That's another hierarchy. So you can see hierarchies in the determining of truth. Hierarchies are present all the time. You can use higher forms of like ways of finding information, or you can use the lower one. That's your choice. You have a choice to make about. With this one, you don't have to trust anyone but yourself, but you do have to trust your senses. And you do have to trust your feelings and beliefs and your intellect. Right? You've got to trust something in order for it to even work. Right? This one, you can trust somebody else, but that means the emotion of not trusting somebody else has to go. Right? So if you have an emotion of not trusting someone else when it comes to education, you're going to be pretty stuffed. Right? Because at some point, if you want to get educated about things you don't know, the fastest way to do that is to trust somebody who knows. Right? And this is a functional problem that we have when we come to determine spiritual truths. The average person on earth does not know what they're sharing is true, and so you're listening and getting educated, but the education is turning out to be false. And so all that's going to do is be to your detriment, because remember we said that anything that's harmonious with truth is to your betterment, but anything disharmonious with truth is to your detriment. Right? So if you have an emotion where you can't trust somebody who's already educated and you can't determine, because there's plenty of people on earth who think they're educated, but they're not. There's, you go up to the average man, girls, and ask them about a mechanical device, and they always think they know more than you, right? Whether they do or not. Whether they've been educated by reading the book or not. They always think they know better, right? Well, that's an emotion. Right? An emotion determining who they're going to trust, right? And if you're in a state where you have these emotions, obviously your education is going to have detrimental effects, because you're going to trust the people who are untrustworthy and then not trust the people who are trustworthy. Right? At the moment, there's many people on earth claiming to be Jesus. And one of them might be. Right? And how are you going to know? It's the same principle, right? You firstly look at inside yourself. Are there reasons why I don't want to trust anybody who says they're Jesus? Well, the average person has a list of emotions there, right? But then, of course, they also have a list of feelings associated with whether they can trust anybody at all, external to themselves. So you'd have to deal with that. But then you'd have to use your senses, your emotions, your beliefs, your experiments, the ways you're using to determine truth, whether to determine that one of those so-called Jesus people is the actual Jesus person or not. You'd have to do that, wouldn't you? If you were logical about it, that's what you would do. It's the same principle. You don't have to be afraid of any of them. You don't have to be afraid of listening to them, because you're only going to be afraid of listening to them if you actually listen to them and do what they say without experimenting. Right? And that wouldn't be a very wise thing to do at all. You need to have your own experimental process in order to come to the knowledge, you could say, of the truth, whatever that truth is.